Well, we've got some new details, some new denials, all about that infamous DACA meeting where President Trump disparaged Haiti and Africa. Have we entered a new phase where the GOP senators will be even willing to lie to protect their president and malign a fellow senator just for the sake of politics? Also, what happens if there is no DACA deal and we get a government shutdown on Friday? Well, we know there'll be a loser to the American public, but politically, who gets the W and who gets the L, and what will happen next? Plus, we are tracking the snow that's headed towards our area. We've got the very latest. That and much more straight ahead. Evening, everybody, and welcome to RFL. I'm Richard French, and thank you so much for joining us this Tuesday night. And we begin this evening where else but Capitol Hill. The Senate Judiciary Committee, they held a hearing on immigration today, and it got heated. That when the subject of President Trump's comments about Haiti and Africa and Salvador came up. Here is Senator Cory Booker from New Jersey unloading on the Homeland Security Secretary when she said she couldn't remember whether or not Trump used expletives even though she was in the room.
I hurt. When Dick Durbin called me, I had tears of rage when I heard about this experience in that meeting. And for you not to feel that hurt and that pain and to dismiss some of the questions of my colleagues, saying I've already answered that line of questions when tens of millions of Americans are hurting right now because of what they're worried about what happened in the White House. That's unacceptable.
Well, I want you to listen to the senator's words that really started this all, who was an eyewitness who sat in that meeting. I'm talking about Senator Dick Durbin, the only Democrat I should mention who was in the room with the president when he made those now infamous comments, taking Republicans to task for their faulty memories.
Now, Senators Cotton and Perdue have challenged the notion that he said S-hole, and I believe there's some reporting out there that White House officials say that Perdue and Cotton think that he said S-house countries as opposed to S-hole countries.
Let me say they're wrong. I can tell you explicitly they are wrong. And let me also say, is that their defense? That S-house is acceptable, S-hole, he would never say? Come on. To think that the President of the United States would refer to any country on earth as an S-house country, for goodness sakes.
Now, you probably remember that it was the Washington Post who originally broke this story, and today the Post provided new details about what went on before, during, and after. We're going to go through some of the revelations, but first, let's get to those denials, which are really, frankly, outright lies. Now, you just heard Dick Durbin refer to this. The Post says that Senators Perdue and Cotton told the White House they heard S-house instead of S-hole, and that enabled them to deny the president ever said any of the comments that were attributed. However, those same senators initially said they didn't even recall what the president said. And speaking of the president, the same Post piece details how he kept changing his mind and basically agreed with the last person he spoke with. On Thursday morning, he was praising Senator Durbin's bipartisan immigration deal and was even happier when he heard that Lindsey Graham, Republican from South Carolina, was on board with him. But after speaking with hardliners like Stephen Miller and the aforementioned Mr. Cotton, suddenly the president wasn't on board anymore. Then, at that noon meeting on Friday, Trump unloaded and he unleashed his S-hole tirade and he scuttled any talk of a deal. Now that's where we are now. That meeting, it was pivotal and it revealed Trump's priorities. He complained there wasn't enough money there to build his wall. He blasted Democratic proposals that would adjust immigration policy. Trump specifically was upset that those policies would attract more people from undesirable countries instead of drawing immigrants from places like Norway. Then there's General John Kelly, the White House Chief of Staff. We all put this guy saying that he was the one sane guy in the room, the one adult here who could make sure the president stayed on topic. But apparently, that same General Kelly sat stone-faced while Trump said those unbelievable things about Haiti and Africa, and he made that infamous S-hole comment. Kelly, I should say, was also an influential voice advising Trump, it turns out, not to accept the Durbin-Graham deal that the president said, just bring it to my desk and I'll sign it. So after the meeting, Trump started telling people the proposal on the table was a, quote, terrible deal for me, and that Kelly and others were correct in advising him to back away. So, got a lot to unpack here with our panel, and let's bring him in as we speak. Republican strategist Joseph Pinion joins us. Dominic Carter, political journalist and author. Scott Vanderhoff, Republican five-time county executive in Rockland County, now co-chairman of the Palisades Institute of Dominican College, and Andrew Whitman, our senior political correspondent. Okay. First off, Joe, I spoke to the guys, obviously, yesterday. We spoke at length about this, and it was telling on the day we recognized Dr. King, the comments that, hey, I want people from Norway, I don't want people from Haiti and the continent of Africa, and I don't think have to reach to draw a conclusion here that a lot of people have. When you heard your president say those things, and you heard the whole TikTok about what happened after, and apparently that he was doing a victory lap, calling people saying, look how good I did. What did it tell you about your president that he would say those things?
Well, first, I don't think it's surprising that some of these things have been reported. I don't think that these are something that is somehow beyond the pale. Something
Is
that
that
we
even
wouldn't-
worse?
I think it is what it is. And I think to focus on whether it's worse, bad, anywhere in between is kind of the wrong issue. I think that, some of the defenses that have been, levied, in defense of what has occurred are just kind of missing the entire point. We have a president that has said, even if you excuse the fact that he called nations of origin, an S-hole for millions of Americans, where they come, their culture, their pride, their heritage, it's less about that and more about the people. He said that he didn't want the people from those countries, as if somehow by virtue of the fact that these nations produced them, they were unworthy of being here in this nation, of sharing in our bounty, a nation that has prided itself of taking people from other places and growing a greater bounty than they ever would have been able to achieve from where they came. So I think that, again, we can walk about what he says, house, whole, that's not the point. The point is that we have a president now with his which cannot be denied, which has said that there are just certain people that this nation should not be catering to, certain people who, by the way, already live here, who somehow are less American than what he would like to see as the ideal. And that in and of itself is something that can't be denied, should not be ignored, and something that we should be focusing on instead of all this other, nonsense that circulates around the issue.
Well, Dominic, we're going to get into it this program, but we're in an important window in time right now, not just in this bizarre chapter of American history, but we've got a budget deadline coming up with the government shutdown around the corner. We've got the DACA deadline coming up in March here, and there's other deadlines that are facing. But as we do all that, we're learning in the TikTok how this administration operates, how this White House operates. I think it's even a little more scary than him, going on to Twitter tirades. It's the last person in the room. He's a cipher. He doesn't come with any policy that is any core to him. He wants to sign things and doesn't read what he's signing. He just wants to have a legislative victory to say that he got something done. By every measure, he wanted Durbin and Graham to come back with something so he didn't have to keep talking about DACA. All of a sudden, the next person comes in the room and says, you don't want to do that. Think back to that earlier meeting when he brought the cameras in last week, where we praised him for the transparency of it. He started saying, yeah, you're right, Senator Feinstein. You're right. Let's give me a clean bill on this. We'll just do that. And all of a sudden, Congressman McCarthy, Republican, goes, whoa, that's not what we want here. And the president goes, oh, yeah, you're right. We don't want that. That, to me, is scary. You're talking about a puppet now. And the last person in the room to pull the strings is going to get their way. And the idea that a Stephen Miller, that little twerp, is the marionette, my God. I'm not even kidding now. That's really, and anyone who read the same piece that I did, I defy anyone to come to a different conclusion. The last person comes and says, you're not going to win if you do it that way. He'll say, I just want to win. Tell me what my deal is that I want. I mean, he flip-flopped 3 times in 72 hours in terms of what he wanted.
Richard, you're preaching to the choir right now because I agree with everything that you just said. I wish that there was something I could disagree with just for the sake of conversation. But everything you just said is on point. We watch what the president said last week, repeating what you just said from the DACA meeting, because I almost fell off my chair. He said, oh, yeah, we're going to sign this. We're going to do it separately. And he almost sounded for a second presidential, for a second. And then as soon as the meeting's over, flip-flop, somebody else told him. So say whatever you want about Obama. Obama was well-read, well-versed, and knew the issues, studied the issues.
And he had a plan. You might not have liked the plan, but he at least
had a plan.
Right, he had an agenda. Yeah. And Andrew, the one adult in the room we were kept being told was, hey, General Kelly and to a degree General Mattis and whatever reservations people had that too many guys at Stars and Bars were basically telling them or running the show here. But at least you had General Kelly to make sure that the lunatics weren't running the asylum here and that there was going to be some more order that was going to be brought to the Oval Office. By all accounts, he's the one who played as big a role as anyone in scuttling this deal. He's the one who sat there and let the president go where he went without any effort here to say, well, no. These guys serve in my military too. These guys, I served with these people. They're just as American as anyone else. One Republican voice and only one stood up, and that was Lindsey Graham. Where's General Kelly in this?
Well, I mean, he's obviously facilitating and contributing to where the president is on all of this, but keep in mind, this is a career military guy. I don't think the general public had any idea what his positions were on almost any particular issue. The adult in the room was the one who stopped people from walking in and out of the Oval Office all the time and being the last word in the president's ear. But when it comes to his position, particularly on immigration stuff, keep in mind his last post was as the Secretary of Homeland Security, the department that runs the immigration department and runs the immigration policies that the Trump administration wanted to implement, including the crackdowns on the borders, including the Muslim bans, and including a lot of the objectionable stuff in all this. I don't think it's outside the realm of possibility that this is where John Kelly is on immigration.
And Lindsey Graham said out loud that that his aides and his administration are not serving him well here. But then I go full circle to the thing that's bothered me the most, which is Joe's right. You kind of known after a year who Trump is, and it takes nothing he says shocks anymore, and there's been a pattern. But there's one thing that if there's a shortage of political courage to come out and say, this is what happened. And let's be clear, Durbin didn't open his mouth until there was a denial by the White House, and he said, time out. Lindsey Graham stood up and said, no, Mr. President, that's not who these people are. Now, whether he went public or not, he said that, and everyone in the room, I'm sorry, when a senator confronts a president, you're going to remember that moment. For what Senators Cotton and Perdue did, and I'm sorry, you've served 5 terms as county chair, so you've seen when the doors are closed and the back and forth. You don't forget those moments. And for them to not only have cognitive amnesia here collectively, but then to say he didn't do it and lie because of it was an S-hole and not an S-house or whatever, vice versa, that to me is not only shameful here, but that's not in America's best interest, which is what their job is. If you're not going to have the guts to say it, don't lie about what was said.
I agree. Just to add to that, I mean, there are 2 points to this, I think, that are far more important than what word wasn't used. One is we've lost credibility in the presidency. 2, we've lost credibility in politics because we don't know who to trust, who to believe in, what they're really saying, and for every comment that the president makes, someone has some kind of way to fix it. And the American public, I think, and this is where it really comes down to it, is interested in the 800,000 people who are at DACA. What's going to happen there? What about the child health insurance program? Okay? What about the defense spending? What about those things that matter to us as opposed to the politics of denial, which is what you have here? And how far do we carry this? You and the media as well. The denials, what's at issue here? There are hundreds of thousands of lives that are based on the political wisdom, strength, and honesty of people who are elected to office. And we're not getting that. So the American public, I think, is properly set back on their behind saying, what is going on here with the president? And what's going on with the future of this country with respect to policy?
I know we're tight on time. One quick comment about the 800,000 DACA people. That the threat that they're facing right now in March with this deadline is an artificial construct. And I think people forget this. There was no court decision. They weren't about to be evicted or thrown out of this country until President Trump decided to change that policy. All of this cramming for the deadline and trying to get it done is an artificial construct set by the president to try to force there was no order to reverse the policy.
No. It was set by the Democrats as leverage to try to get that taken care of because improperly President Obama did this by himself.
But there was no court case that was forcing them to end this policy. It was a deadline that was arbitrarily set up by the president, by President Trump.
And it's now been set up by the Democrats in Congress, Andrew. They're the ones who are saying
they're the executive order, Scott.
The March
orders.
The president extended. It was an executive order done by President Obama, no debate. When inheriting it, President Trump decided, all right, we're going to figure this out in March. But he decided the March date. Now, could they have punted it? Has he insisted that it's going to be the date? And look at all the negotiations. We're going to get into that after the break here. This has become a political football, these 800,000 kids, as miraculously has the budget once again. So we're going to take a look at shutdown politics here. If Congress doesn't reach a deal on DACA or a budget agreement to keep the government running, somebody's got to pay a price. And I want to ask the table is, who's it going to be? Is it going to be one party or the other? Is it going to be politicians if you're a Democrat in a purple state? Is it going to be a Republican if you're in a blue state? What happens here, first of all, to the country, but also to those 535 folks here in D.C.? Stay with us.